This is day 5 of the June 92 7-day retreat at Springwater. There was a question recently which we didn't get to and which has come up again. I think maybe what I'll do today is just respond to the questions as I'm reading them. There's only one more day. On the last day we usually read. So we'll try that. There was this question, when you talk about not doing anything, are you saying that we shouldn't do anything? What about doing something we really love to do, like making a garden, making things grow, taking care of plants and flowers, or writing stories or poems, or working with people who have problems and difficulties facing emergencies, working with people who have AIDS or who are in prison. How can I convey here, talking every day of a retreat, and I don't mean to say do this or don't do that. As far as this work is concerned, I'm looking at what we're doing and raising questions. And so easily the brain that is conditioned, totally almost, to do's and don'ts, the opposites. If she says this and it sounds good, then the opposite must be bad. This is how we're conditioned to think and to hear. Can we become aware of that? How we hear things, and even though we're quite sure we heard she said we shouldn't do anything or we should do that, to question it when that thought comes up and maybe check again, is that what you meant? As somebody did here. Is this what you meant? We shouldn't do anything? Not to trust our conditioned thoughts and ways of hearing things too much. To check it out. If it doesn't make sense, if it sounds incoherent, to question it oneself or in coming to a meeting or a group, as has been going on in this retreat. It's the most wonderful thing we can do, is to do something we love to do. Then in that there's not this effort of overcoming resistance, pushing oneself, which in itself creates resistance. Resistance creates pushing of willpower, and willpower creates resistance. I just realized again the week before retreat what an incredible thing it is to work the ground and put some plants in it. Water them carefully. Not that all the soil just runs right off of them, which may happen with the rain. Even just pressing the roots into the ground, loosening the ground, and putting some mulch around, and then watching them grow. It's a marvelous thing. Particularly after a rain, how the plant seems to breathe and open up. Sprout more leaves, and how fast they grow in good soil and rain and sunshine. To plant a tree where we hear so much about and it's not just that we're hearing about it, it's going on, deforestation, mostly in underdeveloped countries where money needs to be made, acreage is demanded. Profits are yearned for to imitate other profit-making countries. Just recently read a book in which it says for every page of this book, a tree has been planted, or for whatever it took in trees to make this book possible, 2 trees were planted. This is how it was explained. And to plant one oneself, it doesn't have to be huge, it can be a sapling. But it takes care. One can't just plant something and forget about it, because the weeds will grow faster and maybe choke this little sapling. People who take care of the border here know that, how quickly the weeds take over these marvelous flowers. And it's not that weeds are bad, but if one plants flowers and wants to enjoy and see the color and have it here for people who come to retreat to look at. Many people have mentioned the joy of looking at these flowers. Then these beds have to be taken care of. And does that become a chore which I have to do, or will one begin to, in doing it, watching what one is doing and the beauty of what one is doing? Sometimes that love isn't there at the beginning. Maybe it's something assigned to one. Or one, out of some guilt feelings, chooses to do a job for others, but in doing it, maybe shed light on the guilt, and maybe the guilt can dissipate in the doing it. The joy of it needs no further motive. Joy of working with people, one person told me, being on a hot telephone, hotline, and the marvel of discovering about oneself in talking to people in all kinds of difficulties and circumstances, and just listening to them, and listening to oneself. Helping people in prison, volunteer work, or whatever one is doing, working on an aid station. Wherever one is, how is one there? Driven from guilt, compulsion, or the image of being the do-gooder? Or can, in working, there be some space to also see that motivation and the image, and that become less and less important? Oneself, what it does to the image. It's so petty. If one is really into careful working with people, with plants, with dishes. Here we were talking in retreat about doing nothing about what comes up. But this doing nothing, or not knowing what to do about whatever is coming up, emotions or feelings, or maybe nothing. Not immediately. What am I to do about this? I should change it, I should get rid of it and transcend it, or I should hold on to this wonderful feeling of bliss or emptiness. There is, I think, how the question was raised. I don't remember it now. To do nothing and just be there. The attention gathering, the energy. Awareness is energy, it's what it is. Energy gathered in not doing this or that for or against something. Somebody yesterday in a group said, isn't that passivity? To look, just to look, isn't that passive? Actually, if this awareness is there, one will realize there is nothing passive about it. Theoretically, one may think that, well, I'm just looking, doing nothing. It's a state of passivity. That's what we imagine and think. That's an indication of its being a conceptual thing. But when this seeing happens, the energy is there. And the seeing is the doing, if you will, is the action. What else may come out of it, who knows? So not to take this, what one hears as an invitation to do nothing, and to let things happen, to let a miracle happen and wait for it. That's doing something, waiting for something, waiting for Godot. Even if one may not have much to do, maybe one doesn't have to earn a living. There are some people who don't. If the eyes and ears are halfway open, the senses, There's things to take care of. There's one's own body to take care of. Keep it clean and healthy. Intelligently exercising. To keep it clean around oneself, to keep one's house in order. You may say, well, this is just Toni's tick, compulsion, to keep the house in order. But find out for yourself. Sometimes so many people have told me, coming home from a retreat, I cleaned out the garage for the first time. One person mentioned who couldn't care less how his room looked, and how many cobwebs on the window and stuff lying around all over the place. Somebody got after him to clean up. Because he cared for this person, he did do it, and he said, it's marvelous to live in this space, in this orderly space. I didn't care, and I still don't care whether things lie around. But there is something to it. But you have to find it out for yourself and not fall into the pattern of mother saying something. Then we resist it with all our might. Or compulsively becoming the mother oneself. But to experiment with the beauty of order. Things having their place, and maybe a flower here or there. And then there are all kinds of jobs. People have listed them here. There's a lot of help needed. If one is so inclined and wants to do something with other people, there's, wherever one looks, there's need for volunteers. And one can observe and learn about oneself as one goes. Not to have this idea, I must be perfectly clear and empty of self before I can do something for others. This idea can become a real barricade, a paralysis. One sees oneself as one works with people, learns about oneself, not just about the others, because the others are also oneself, and one's reactions are the other people's reactions too. If not today, then tomorrow. You talked yesterday morning about fighting and defending images, like in a war. Images of my country, my religion, arousing the energy to fight or to defend and to kill. But there are people caught in the middle of all our wars, defending their families, their children. Is there any image involved in that? Or is that an immediate response? Is self-defense based on image? This came up in the group actually, what the next person, let's read those that all came up in a cluster. Don't we, in order to protect or enhance? No, this is something different. I'll just stay with this question here first. It becomes too complicated. One has to look again. Of course, one may not in this country, except in the ghettos or in the slum areas of city where fighting is going on. There's really wars going on. Terrorism. One may not know how one would respond. And defending one's children or one's family, is that based on image? It doesn't matter what it's based on, what is going on in oneself, and how is one defending? Can one defend without killing someone else? Would one kill someone else in defense of one's child? Or be killed oneself in the defense of one's child? How does one know? The situation would have to arise to see. I couldn't answer this. Or if I answered, I would say I would not kill someone else to defend myself. And maybe there are other ways to defend my child rather than killing someone. here and there one hears a story where somebody just calmly stood up to someone and said, "What are you doing? Why don't you drop that gun?" And it has worked. Because something may communicate itself, which is beyond anger and hatred. But is one in that state? Will one be in that state as a gun points at one? I don't know. I couldn't predict it. I would have to be there. And the defense of my family, we were talking about that sometimes there can be great war in the family, fighting each other, but then when it comes to protecting my family, I'll fight for it. My husband found that in school. He was a school principal. And in families where children were really abused, hit and pushed around. But if a teacher complained about the child, the mother would very angrily defend the child. That would happen. So it can switch, first fighting among each other, but then my family versus the outsider who would attack it, physically or verbally. Or one perceives it as an attack when something is said about the child's behavior, difficulties. Becoming defensive because one is then identified with this child. You're attacking me when you say something about my child. My image, and the confusion of the physical survival protection with the protection of the image as something worth looking into. We think we're protecting our life and we're protecting our image. And the body responds in the same way, in the same chemical, electromagnetic, and what have you way, sending transmitters to all the organs to mobilize adrenaline, whatever is necessary, muscular tension, to attack when my image is threatened, not my life. Because later on somebody asked, well, what if, as is happening in our city, a child was snatched from a stroller, as it's happening? If I imagine this right now, witnessing this, I would attack the kidnapper. Maybe she would. And maybe that would save the child. She asked, isn't that a natural response to protect someone weaker, particularly a child? It is particularly for a mother of her child. Whether of another child, and maybe a less strong, quote-unquote, natural response to protect the other child. Or maybe not, maybe it's just as strong. One would have to see. But we have also heard and read that more recently people become paralyzed in witnessing something that's happening right before their eyes on a city street and not entering into it. Paralyzed for fear, they could also be drawn into the hassle, into the violence. Hearing this story, the killing of the child through beating. People had heard that. The neighbors had heard it. And were not too afraid or too lethargic or too paralyzed to do something about it. So how we will respond and what is natural, who knows these days? We're so beset by ideas and knowledge about violence and danger. The danger of strangers, of minorities, black people, people who look different from the way we do. Or vice versa, white people become a danger, have been a danger to black people for hundreds of years. And the knowledge of that, will that prevent looking at each other without those prejudices, without all of that past knowledge of history? Seems impossible, doesn't it? And yet we're not saying it's impossible, because indeed there can be such a seeing in which the past is disconnected because the energy is here in the looking and listening and in wanting to embrace and behold what's there without antagonism or hostility. How to get to that state, I don't know. People have asked it. How do I get there? I want that. We'll come to that later. The questions have been noted down. Why do we want our image of ourselves to continue, even if it is so very negative? Why this concern about continuing as me? In watching a tree blowing and bending in the wind, there seems to be no image involved at all. Just the movement of the wind and the tree interacting. I think that is a tremendously profound question for all of us to hold. Why do I want to continue as me, as I, my future based on my past knowledge and what I am dreaming about now, to be, to become, to remain, to attain? And to go deep in this question, there is a tremendous holding power of this me existence, existing as something, as somebody, and wanting that to continue, assuming it will continue. Actually, it's my husband said that when he was in the hospital for an operation. He said he contacted tremendous anxiety and said, I've also come in touch with this deep assumption that I would live forever. I've never quite realized how deep that assumption was, that I would go on living forever. Of course, as one takes care of plants or watches trees and this incredible growth this spring, everything wants to live, to continue to bear fruit for seeds, and they're floating. Pretty soon we'll have dandelion and grass seeds floating all over the place, and some people have a hard time and get hay fever from it. Life wants to propagate itself. As maybe that is the desire, if you want to put it that way, of life, to continue, to bloom, to bear fruit, and to sprout anew. And not to already have a prejudice against this wanting to continue, because one has heard that there is no self, and that's supposed to be the right state and the good state, the blissful nirvanic state. But to approach it with curiosity and to watch this desire for continuing to come up at all kinds of times, and to listen to it deeply. Maybe one has watched it come up in an interaction or in a hospital or being diagnosed with cancer. And then in sitting, does it come up, and can it be deepened by wondering, what is this me that wants to continue? What is it? What is all this? And listening inwardly, not having answers, but holding the question and wondering. What is there inside? Is there some me, some I, some entity, some soul? The books and the holy people have said so. The soul, the me, of course, in Eastern spiritual tradition has said there is no I, there is no self in anything. But I don't want to accept anything anybody has said. I want to find out for myself. For that I have to look inwardly on my own. Nobody can do that for me. I may not even be interested in finding out. My belief is so strong that there is a soul, so I go on with the belief. Don't want anybody to disturb that. That's all right too. Don't we, in order to protect or enhance our image, actually damage ourselves? For instance, in trying to follow scores of different diets to look better, younger, thinner, we do hurt our bodies. It's a very simple but very poignant example of ignoring the needs of the body for a certain balanced diet in order to look better or younger, taking all kinds of whatever one takes, I don't know. I have not been on such diets. But it is examining whether serving the image is always, or at any time, healthful and helpful, or whether it becomes a real prison. And will one begin to see it, glimpse it, be curious about it? Not say I must transcend it, or I don't have any image, I shouldn't have any. Or try to repress all this whole process, but to let it come to light so we become wise about it and about each other. In the power, the tremendous power of the image, it is inordinately powerful. What will people think of me? We talked about that at length in a group yesterday. Tremendous fear of what people will think of me. And it may indeed ruin one's reputation if too many people talk and think badly of me. Maybe, if I looked at it personally right now, if a lot of people talk badly about what I say, what I do, that it's no good, it's unhelpful, threatening, brainwashes people. Whatever all could be conceived or heard and talked about, people may not come to retreat anymore. And then, what would we use this place for? I may have more time for gardening. So there can be a real threat in the attack or defamation of one's image. It can really hurt one's livelihood, but is one identified with this image? Or can one see where one is misperceived, that it's very painful to be misperceived, to be misunderstood and talked about in misunderstood ways? Very painful. Or in unjust ways, things that one may not have done are attributed to one. Of course, it always behooves us to look. Maybe we did it. To take time and space out to look. Does the person have something? One has to examine it. Cannot just dismiss it out of hand. They're off the wall. To look carefully, but one can see, no, that I did not do or say. But is one identified with one's image, and is one's whole energy invested in this image? One's energy, one's faith, one's strength? Or is it rooted in something that has nothing to do with image? Then, even though it's painful to not be understood right, be misunderstood or talked about in whatever ways, it is not life-threatening. May change one's occupation. But, one may retire. I'm not saying this is imminent. This sounds as though there's such things. It's always been happening ever since I started this work. Hadn't realized that this is what comes with it, being misunderstood, misquoted, talked about, attacked. But that is not the main work. And most people coming here are not doing that. Most people find it helpful to look together and to challenge me. I enjoy that. That's life-giving. I look again too on a new level. Is it true? Is it so? Let's look together or alone. So to learn and be wise about the power of one's image, because that is what is getting hurt. When we feel hurt when somebody says something about us. And if there's investment in this image, it may be unbearable pain. One may feel sick about it for weeks, having been talked about or told something that has hurt the image. So this is so important to look at as we go and to investigate and question. As I get hurt, what is it that's getting hurt? One person just told me that yesterday in a group. Even though there's tremendous distress over image playing at the place of work, everybody reading each other, and competitiveness and all the stressful interpersonal relationships, that whenever the question sort of surfaces, what is it that gets hurt, there seems to be a moment of relief from this whole game that we're playing on each other and on ourselves. A moment of reprieve and wondering, not taking this totally serious, that one has to feel hurt and one has to hit back or defend oneself. In looking what is getting hurt and the energy gathering, in looking inwardly and listening, wondering, the hurt may dissipate and give way to some space. To be there without an image and hear what people have to say, that is possible. It's not easy, but it is very simple. You haven't responded to the question about karma that you read the other day. What about the consequences of our actions in this life and also in another life through rebirth or reincarnation? I used to, when I became a Buddhist, one of the attractive things was this idea of rebirth, of having more chances. Imagining you would have better. You always imagine having a better chance, of course. Of course, there can be the fear of having a worse chance, being reborn and in a punitive way, as a demon. Or we are already demons at times. Don't have to be reborn as them. This manifests. All of these things manifest in this life. So I'm not concerned. I was once interested, attracted by it, used to also sermonize to others in the family about it, which you do when you become newly converted to some new faith and belief. Actually, I thought Zen was a religion without faith and belief, but I found out otherwise. It also has its beliefs and faiths and dogma. And trying to explain and justify to my family what I was doing, I was also convincing myself a little bit every time. And there may, who knows, there may, well, of course there's rebirth. There's birth all the time. Why call it rebirth? There's birth. To say that this particular entity, which I haven't found to exist, will be reborn is unfathomable to me right now. Because there is no entity, there's only streams of thought, streams of ideas and images manifesting in all of us, and they are constantly being reborn. Either in the next moment, a moment of stillness, and then the rebirth of ideas and images about myself or others. And in a new baby, of course, doesn't take very long, and the thoughts are being inculcated or are taken over by osmosis, thoughts of self and other. So the stream of imagery and thinking goes on and has been going on. Memories are passed on and transmitted to next generations. And memories come up. We talked about it in an earlier talk. Suddenly a memory may come up about my early childhood that I've completely forgotten. Here it is. Who knows where memories are stored? There are new theories that memories are not just stored in brains, that they are stored in morphic or morphogenic, whatever the word is, fields of stored memory, which have to do with forming us and forming our memories. Some of this makes a lot of sense. And so a memory of Middle Ages or who knows what time may surface in this mind, because these memories are stored. It's already the ancient Buddhist doctrine of the storehouse memory in which nothing has been lost. Jung, relatively late, talks about the collective unconscious, but this has been knowledge of the ancient Orientals, that nothing is lost that has once happened, it is stored in memory. So a memory surfaces here and I say, oh, this was my former life. And I believe in it, and other people come and have me tell them about their former life. To me, there's nothing amazing about it, because memory hangs around and can be elicited at any time of this lifetime or of ancient times. But I want to find in this life, at this moment, what is the entity that I believe in so strongly? A little man or woman inside of me? That's what used to be thought. Try to find this little homunculus. At that time it was just male. Today it would also be homuncula. And in looking inward, I find nothing except thoughts or no thoughts. No entity. Of course, there can be clusters of thoughts, clustering about my personal memories and experiences. And will that cluster continue, sort of incarnate in a new baby? And why spend time on speculating about that? Then I'm away again from watching here. Why the speculation? Why the fascination with it? Is it too tedious to be with this moment? To speculate about the next life? Of course, whatever we do has consequences. I think we've touched upon that in not using the term karma. I'm not using it because it has become such a overused concept that people don't see what they're saying, just using concepts. I want to see what I'm saying. So I'm feeling hurt at this moment and lashing out at you, there's going to be consequence, because you're going to lash back at me. Or at somebody else who you feel is weaker. There are consequences to whatever we do, how we talk about each other, how we are with each other. Consequences to what we eat. How we live, healthily or negligently. That can be observed. We can be wise about the consequences of our own thoughts and actions without having to use fancy concepts. If I think hateful thoughts of someone else, I don't feel good inside. I feel all riled up. It has sort of hateful thoughts of someone else, or resentful or vengeful thoughts of someone else, have a toxic effect on the system. Maybe more toxic than what is spewed out by automobiles. And that one can watch in oneself if one is interested in cause and effect, which is what karma is, the law of cause and effect. as for my bad karma, this is how it's used, maybe it's my bad karma that right now I'm in a bad position, or the family is breaking up, or I don't make enough money, it's my bad karma. I would rather look at what is going on than blame it on something that I haven't looked at, haven't carefully observed. All of us, as we're sitting here, obviously including myself, I wish I wouldn't even have to say that, have done everything under the sun at one time or another in our life, or in the life of our parents, their parents, uncles, aunts. We are the result of everything that has gone on in history. The wars, the sadnesses, the good deeds, the happy times, the sorrowful times, the vengeful times. Trying to save somebody, trying to save oneself, trying to continue, thinking hateful thoughts, thinking compassionate thoughts. All of us have done that, maybe not in this life, but the life of our parents, which is where we come from. Air, egg, and sperm is what grew into this. We are all of the past of humanity sitting here. And the way we're acting today has a lot to do with all of these influences of our childhood, our inheritance. Whether we grew up in degradation and poverty, hopelessness, that shapes us, or in luxury, or in a happy family, a relatively happy family. So this thing of I am reaping my own karma, we are the result of all that's happened in our life and everybody else's. Is that going to determine from now on every moment of my future life? I don't know. I don't believe it. I have to watch this moment. And is there some freedom to watch this moment? So an ancient reaction doesn't happen so automatically that it keeps on going. Reprisal and so forth we talked about. Most of the time our reactions are very automatic, but it doesn't have to be. One can wonder about it. And maybe in the wondering about automatic reactions, as somebody says something to me to which I'm almost going to react in a habitual way, I'm listening for a moment to the reaction which hasn't come out yet. It's already palpable there, but it's not yet across the vocal cords. I'm listening here, and I'm listening to the person and having the freedom to take him or her in. Then maybe a cause will not become an effect. It'll not become a cause because I'm listening. It won't cause the response. The listening is not a cause and it's not an effect. It's something different. I don't know what it is. There are 2 more questions left. I'll read them, but I won't answer them today, or I've never answered them anyways. We won't go into them. But we'll come back tomorrow. And if you don't want to, you have heard them already. And may not want to go into that, but there will also maybe be some new ones. Can you say something about sending energies, healing energies, to other people? Also say something, or is there something about sending compassionate thoughts to others? We'll go into that tomorrow. And here is the last question. On hearing this broth, excuse me. I have to leave this for tomorrow. There's a coughing right now. We'll end here for today.